Welcome to the show. Glad to have you with us once again. It is Wednesday, and that means Mailbag Day on Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat, along with IrishBreakdown.com. My name is Sean Stiers. The guy that I'm looking at in the YouTube channel right now is the one and only Vince D'Addario. And don't forget, if you're driving around in your car right now and you're listening to us on the radio and you want to submit a question to the mailbag, well, all you got to do is go jump on either one of the live YouTube streams, whether it's the Irish Breakdown YouTube stream or the Sports Radio WSBT YouTube stream. So there you go.
Yeah, here we go. I just wanted to see who would blink first on that one. It makes for really good radio, though.
I guess it was me. Yeah. Technically, I laughed first after you. So, hey, don't forget, our new morning guy is the one and only Brady Quinn. Speaking of one and onlys, former Notre Dame quarterback, former NFL first-round draft pick, one of the co-hosts of Big Noon Kickoff. He, LeVar Arrington, and Jonas Knox are the hosts of Two Pros and a Cup of Joe, and you can hear it each and every weekday morning starting at 6 a.m. as of this week on Sports Radio WSBT. Very excited about that.
Let me, did you or did you not use any of the 10 questions that I threw your way?
Well, I haven't talked to him yet. It's going to be Friday. It's going to be Friday.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
Are you planning on using any of the 10
There's
questions?
at least one, and I'm looking at it, because there's only so much time.
Oh, hey.
There's like a million different things I want to ask him about.
Right.
Everything going on with Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman. And
I was just going off the dome when I was just, because
Friday, I'm going to be talking to him Friday, and then we will have that interview early next week.
Nice. So, okay. I'm looking forward to it. And you know what? He could be a recurring guest. Like, that could be a thing. I'm just saying.
I mean, obviously, I don't think you or I or, anyone here would turn that down. That's kind of up to him and how things go. So we'll see how it goes.
No pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would settle for maybe, even like beginning of the college football season, end of the college football season, middle, whatever.
Yeah.
Couple times, doesn't have to be all the time, but
I just want him on more than once so that we can refer to him as a friend of the show.
There you go. That's right. But yeah, I mean, you have him on twice, then they're a friend.
That's 100%.
Yeah. Go back to his house. That's right. Hey, Brady, let's go hang, man.
Yeah, man. We're guys.
I think a while back we did one of these questions, like, what two former Notre Dame players would you want as your neighbors?
Oh,
and I think I picked Brady Quinn to live on one side of me, and this was when Louis Nix was still with us, and I said Louis Nix to be on the other side.
It's a good one.
It's like party on one side, business on the other side, and but they'd both be very loyal, good neighbors. Brady would be out there mowing his lawn diligently. Maybe Lewis kind of lets his yard go, and there's a little, few too many things, hanging out over there, whatever. But I felt like that would be a good time if you had BQ on one side and Big Lou on the other.
That's a good pick. I don't mind Brady being on one side and since Lewis isn't an option anymore, I'm very curious to see which route I would go for my other side. I mean, Brady was a pro, made some good money in the NFL, obviously making good money now. And depending on who I pick on the other side, that means I'm living in a pretty nice neighborhood is what that means.
I think you're absolutely right. That's it. I would settle for living in the mother-in-law suite beside, right? One of those two guys.
I am not high maintenance. There's very few things I need to be happy,
That's very true. As long as you're feeding Vince 5 times a day, you're just fine.
Hey, trying to cut back now, Sean. I'm trying to get on the Sean Stiers, weight loss journey plan. That's what I'm trying to do. I lost some weight with the surgery, and I kind of like it. I like
it off
the way I look, and so I'm gonna try to do a little better. That's my goal.
I did a fast this week. I've never done other than like when I got my colonoscopy a few years back, or like if you have to fast overnight and it bugs you because you got to go get a blood draw or whatever. If you've ever done that. But I was trying to do like a multi-day fast to kind of like get into the new year, flush some of the crud out of my system, do that kind of thing. And it wasn't that I was starving by the second day, but like I was literally had like a little dizziness.
Yeah.
Stomach was not agreeing with me. And I'm like, well, I made it 38 hours. I don't need to go any farther. I may try to do it like once or twice a month, because I did actually like some of the things, beyond, hunger and those. And I actually had a cramp in the middle of my back too, because I think it's like the dehydration. Because even though it's food, like I was drinking more coffee to try to fight off the hunger pains early on. So I think that kind of impacted me. But yeah, I don't know. How do we get down that road?
It's a great question.
I don't know. I wanted to flash before we get to some of these other questions. Tommy hasn't been here in a while. I'm sure he's been out at wrestling practice with his son or something. It feels like that's something Tommy does at this time of year because it is wrestling season, of course. But he asks, what is a corner route to the middle of the field? Was Jesse referring to a post route yesterday? I think he gets dyslexic when it comes to his pass routes, because the funny thing about this, and I don't remember him saying corner route to the middle of the field, but they're one of those shows that you guys did, and he's done this before. He was referring to a corner route, but he was calling it an outside post pattern. And I texted you guys, by the way, an outside post pattern is a corner route. Now I think he's turned it around and he's calling posts a corner to the middle of the field. I think he's confused himself.
It's what you get when you have a middle linebacker trying to talk offensive routes, because he's not covering a corner route anytime soon.
That's exactly right.
It's not really on his radar. He's a hook curl guy. He knows what those are. So
that's right.
We cut him a little bit of slack.
Yeah, exactly. Hook curl, maybe a little bit of an in. I mean, get him to drop 10 yards off the line.
Right.
That's it.
Speaking of wrestling season, Sean, and obviously you have a wrestling background.
Yeah.
Last night was the big. It was the backyard brawl from a wrestling standpoint.
Was it?
Penn versus Mishawaka. And there are 14 weight classes, which of course you are aware of. And those of you who are not aware, there are 14 weight classes. It was just a dual meet. Came down to the final match. It was the 14th match. It came down to Penn was up 4 points going into the final match, and they got a pin, so they ended up winning by 10. But it came down to the final match. It was a game of runs, man. Like Mishawaka got 2 pins, then Penn won like 6 in a row.
Yeah,
Mishawaka won like 4 or 5 in a row, and it came down to the final match. So that was fun. It was a fun meet to be at.
And those are 2 usually pretty evenly matched programs to begin with. So it would make sense that you would have, like a lot of back and forth and stuff like that. How did Mr. Vinny Freeman do?
He won by tech fall, which means you rack up a ton of points and you win by more than 15. So he basically was doing the whole thing where you get a takedown for 3, you let him go, you give up a point, you take him down, you let him go, you take him down, you let him. It was one of those kinds of things. He was kind of toying with his opponent, but he's pretty focused, I think, right now. He's ranked number 1 in the state at his weight class right now, so he's feeling it.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Brian said intermittent fasting, don't eat from 8 until noon. I've tried, it does nothing for me. That's why I went with the more extended. So
it doesn't.
I generally do that every
difference. I know exactly. That's the thing.
Not with the intermittent stuff. Like I said, I felt like, other than my feeling a little bit just not well in general, like some of the other things, like I could feel like in my face, like less inflamed and those kind of things, which is, kind of part of the reason that you do it. But, and like even today, a couple days later, still feeling pretty solid.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the way I felt, and it was because I didn't eat for like 4 days. I mean, that's why I lost the weight. But it was because I just didn't have an appetite. You feel your insides rolling around in there. Like I didn't feel like eating. So we'll see. We're trying to basically what I'm not changing a whole lot. I'm trying the portion control view of things, Sean.
That's the way to go. That's the way to go. Still eat your favorite foods, just eat smaller portions of it.
Yeah, that's my goal. grab one cookie instead of two at the end of the night or three.
Right.
You know, like let's minimize things a little bit.
Andre was the first person to
All
put in
right.
a question in the chat for the mailbag.
Here we go.
He says, do you believe Notre Dame is over-recruiting at most positions because you don't know who's going to stay and who's going to leave?
First of all, the short answer is yes, Andre. And I don't think that that's a new strategy. You always look to over-recruit every position. I mean, that's just what you do because you don't know what the future holds. You don't know if somebody's going to get injured. You don't know if somebody's going to leave. Now, maybe things are a little heightened nowadays because how easy it is to leave, but this has always been a thing. I mean, even my kid was asked to come to a recruiting weekend last weekend over Christmas break to help recruit another kicker, you know, like to recruit your room and to help out. Like that's always been a thing. And if you're confident in what you're doing, go recruit somebody else for your room. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But I think they always look to over recruit. You're always looking to replace. You're always looking to bring in somebody better. That's got to be the strategy. I mean, you never sit on your laurels when it comes to recruiting.
Right. And, you know, look at the absurd amount of offensive linemen that they have. You know, I think that's a position where they've definitely stockpiled. And I think for the most part they are. You know, there are some other positions that have become a little bit thinner, like tight end has obviously been traditionally very deep there. It was a little thinner last year. They've got some guys coming in. I think when you look at some of these guys who are leaving, like from the secondary and in the linebacker room right now, you know, in the past few days, I think you can definitely see that because, you know, I'll be honest. Like when I look at guys like Bowen and KVA and Ramo and Osbury, like in those kind of guys, like some of these other guys who have left, I kind of was looking like just because of the recruiting rankings, you know, like, sure, is this going to work out? But you need the numbers just in case something happens. And some of those guys also filled, you know, some needs on special teams and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Well. But I think you definitely have to try to as much as possible. And like, and you look at like this year's incoming class and you just look at the sheer talent, there's going to be a lot of depth and talent coming out of this whole thing.
When there's going to be some interesting decisions when it comes to redshirting and things like that. It's like, you know, if you're a coaching staff and you, in the past, you know, you redshirt somebody hoping they're going to be around for 5 years or whatever. And now you redshirt a guy and they leave after their redshirt year and that did you no good whatsoever. And so if they've got talent to get on the field on special teams or whatever, they're going to be making some different kinds of decisions, you know, moving forward as to whether they sit a guy for a whole year or they play him for 4 games or, you know, whatever the case may be to retain that red shirt. I think the red shirt strategy is different now than it used to be in the past.
For sure.
You're just not guaranteed that they're going to stick around anymore. Might as well get some use out of them while they're here.
Right. And you know, to the recruiting, over recruiting aspect because of the transfer portal and because of the fact that anybody can leave at any given time, I think you have to try to do that as much as possible so you don't get stuck going out and having to get these guys out of the transfer portal. Domer Grizz says, happy mailbag. Would you rather have wide receivers who are always open and a quarterback who can only sometimes get them the ball, or wide receivers who can only sometimes get open and a quarterback who can always get them the ball when they do?
I would rather have the second one. Yes. Where they're sometimes open and the quarterback always gets them the ball. I think that is the more realistic version of what I would want on my offense because you are going to be handing the ball off. You're going to be checking down. You're going to be doing some different things. It's okay to not always be open. And that's also not realistic that a wide receiver is always going to be open. But I want a quarterback who can read a defense and can throw to the open man. Like that's what I want.
Absolutely.
And that's what Notre Dame has right now, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I would rather have that guy because like what good does it do you to have guys who are always open if you don't have a quarterback who, you know, who's only going to sporadically get them the ball? I want the guy who is going to be as accurate as possible and who is willing to take chances within reason and be able to get them the ball and assume that they're going to be able to go up and make some contested catches. Yep. That's my answer. It's the quarterback 10 times out of 10.
Yep, absolutely. And Notre Dame hasn't had that in a long time. I can't even tell you how many times I'd be sitting up in the press box watching, from a bird's eye view in the ninth floor and seeing guys running wide open and seeing a quarterback not hit them like that. That's super frustrating to watch. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying I could go down there and do it myself, but you're playing a high Division I football. Like, you need to be hitting some wide open receivers. Like, that was frustrating.
Exactly. Noah Weiss asks, what are your biggest concerns for Notre Dame in 2026? What are you most confident or excited about for the team in 26?
Well, I would say this, not to get the folks that are very upset right now about the portal, not to get you all riled up, but I'm going to take what Notre Dame has on the roster right now on January 7th, okay? And I'm going to say my biggest concern right now is the defensive front and the depth there and things like that. Like, that's my biggest concern. Now, they have an opportunity to address those concerns in the portal, which I think that they will. But as of right now, that's my biggest concern. My biggest confidence is the offense in general, just the offense. It's kind of a blanket statement. It's not super specific, but there's a lot of guys returning offensively that I'm very excited about. And then the guys that are not returning, that are going to be playing a new role and things like that, I'm very confident in the talent level that has been stockpiled offensively for Notre Dame. That includes wide receiver. I'm excited to see what these young guys can do because they're going to get an opportunity, because I don't think the portal wide receiver situation is great. And so these guys are going to get a chance. I'm excited for it. I'm excited for this offense because I think Notre Dame does have a quarterback that can make good receivers great and great receivers elite. You know what I mean? I think he can elevate wide receiver play. And so I'm really excited about what this offense can do.
Yeah, year two in the progression of CJ Carr is
where
I'm most excited, because this is going to be the first time that we've seen a second-year quarterback in forever. It feels like since Ian Book, right? That's the last time that you had a guy who started in back-to-back years for Notre Dame, because we had Riley, we had CJ Carr this past year. We had Riley Leonard before that. We had Sam Hartman before that. We had Tyler Buckner / Drew Pine before that. And then you had Jack Cohn before that as another one and done guy. So you have to go all the way back to Ian Book 5-6 years ago since you had a guy in year two. And when you look at the talent of this guy, the offense is going to go to another level. And you talked about with what he's able to do with the receivers, what he's already has been able to do at the line of scrimmage as a first-time starting quarterback is very advanced compared to other guys at his level. So seeing that in year two and where he can take this offense is definitely the confidence / excitement.
Yeah.
And I wish that I could be other than you. I'm still not falling apart about what's going on with the transfer portal right now, even though Notre Dame, in the last 24 hours or so hasn't, gotten great news, because it looks like the Gilliam guy, the Penn State guy is, he's not going to be here. He's going to be at Tennessee instead. But, so that interior defensive line is the biggest concern right now, because they need both size and guys who can go in there and get the job done at that size. And they just don't have that right now.
Right. Yep.
There's a reason it's such a hot commodity, and there's a reason those guys are able to go out and get the kind of cash that they're grabbing at some of these other places, is because there's not a lot of guys who you really want, who you're going to be confident in to go in and plug in those gaps and get the job done. So that's my biggest concern, because just look at these teams that are still in the Final Four right now. They're all winning at the line of scrimmage. They're built from the lines of scrimmage for the most part. Maybe Ole Miss is a little bit more of an outlier, but I mean, they did go through an SEC schedule. They did beat Georgia in a rematch in the quarterfinals last week. I'm going to be really curious to see what they're able to do in their matchup with Miami. But that's how these teams are built. They're built to be physical, and if Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman know that, they've got to be physical at the lines of scrimmage.
Yeah. Yep. I absolutely agree. And they Marcus Freeman wants to build this team. They're a line first team, right? So, let's see what that looks like.
Let me see. Which mailbag am I going to pull out? Mark says, thoughts on Mark Zachary playing basketball and the impact on football spring development.
I don't think it's that big of a deal. Mark Zachary is not slated to be a starter on this football team. I mean, he's going to be an important backup, but I don't think he's slated to be a starter. And Marcus Freeman wouldn't let him play basketball if he was worried about his development in the spring. And so I'm not that worried about it, to be perfectly honest with you.
He might miss a week or two. Like, we don't know exactly when spring practice is going to begin. I'm kind of curious when it's going to start. They've altered it, and obviously last year they pushed it back even farther because of the fact that they went to the championship game. I'm curious to see when they start it and when they end it, but he'll probably miss a week at the most, like a handful of practices in the spring, because the only way it's going to playing basketball is really going to impact his spring development is if the men make it to the NCAA tournament and play at least a couple of games. Now, that is a possibility, but that's still pretty much up. And that's why I say at the most, probably a week or so is impacted. Because even if they wait until after spring break to begin spring football practice, that pushes it back a little bit. So I don't think it's going to have much impact on him.
Yeah.
Really.
And
if he gets a little time off and he comes back in, nothing else. He's getting good conditioning running with the basketball team right now.
And the basketball team's not going to make a deep run. I don't know if that's like a news flash for anybody.
I was trying to be nice. They still could.
Sure.
A lot of basketball to be played.
There's a lot. I just don't have a whole lot of confidence, especially with their best player on the bench. So, that's going to be tough, but I guess we'll wait. We'll see. We'll see. But I don't think one really has a whole lot to do with the other. I think he'll be fine.
I agree. From Sean Kelly. Sean Kelly has multiple questions.
All right.
In here. Is there anything to the reports of Marcus Freeman not being overall happy at Notre Dame?
If he wasn't happy, he wouldn't be back for 26. How about that? So, I don't know, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy Marcus Freeman is, because Marcus Freeman and I aren't friends and we don't talk. But again, he wouldn't have signed an extension on his contract, or if he's about to do that, he wouldn't be back. He wouldn't, he'd be gone because he has other opportunities. So I don't know. I would say he's more happy than not. How about that?
I would agree with that. And I think that if anything, it's not that he's not happy at Notre Dame. It's just that after these last two cycles, where his name has come up and there has been legit interest from NFL teams, I think that maybe that is kind of getting, maybe not even just in the back of his head, but in his head. And that's something that he's thinking about right now. I would say that's probably the biggest thing. And, again, like we talked a little bit about this on yesterday's show, the difference between college and the NFL and all the things that you don't have to worry about when you're an NFL head coach and, all those different things. I think it's more about that, the fact that he has continued to get more and more NFL interest more than anything. So I don't think it's displeasure necessarily with Notre Dame. I think it is just, he's definitely having his ego stroked by having all these NFL teams who have got interest in his services recently.
Yeah. I mean, look, he's obviously listening to things that are outside of Notre Dame. This is not a situation where he's just shutting everything out. So could you say that he's not 10 out of 10 happy? I think that's fair. But he's also not 2 out of 10. You know what I mean? Otherwise, again, he'd be the Giants head coach, or whoever came calling. I'll tell you what, the Ravens job looks awfully sweet to me. You know what I mean? So
that's, again, we talked about that yesterday. It's like if Marcus Freeman had known that the Ravens job was going to come open, he might have waited a little bit longer to say run it back in 26.
Seriously, if there was an opening on his staff, and even if there's not, I'd bring John Harbaugh in as an analyst. I mean, his kid goes to Notre Dame, I believe, still. So why not?
Yeah, I think John Harbaugh is gonna be a head coach for another NFL team before he becomes an analyst in college.
I'm sure. But if he just wanted to chill, You know what I mean? And just be whatever. And hey, man, I'll pay you X amount to come and help us out. You know what I mean? If you want to take a year off and just hang out and be close to your daughter, I think that'd be cool.
Why not?
You know, he's got plenty of money. He's not hurting for money. You know what I mean?
Yep. Sean Kelly also wants to know, when will be the next time Marcus Freeman speaks to the media?
I believe that would be the first day of spring practice.
That would
probably the next time you're going to hear from Marcus Freeman.
I would be very confident. There's no reason, I realize a lot of people want to hear from him right now with everything that's gone on with him. And, it's like that much more reason for him not to be speaking to the media, because think about how any regular season, like just the flow of the year and the calendar as you go through, you finish your regular season, you're either in the playoff or you go to your bowl game and you do some, different press conferences around those games. You speak after the game. If there's another game coming up next week, you speak with the media, and that's the cycle. And then once the season ends, regardless of when it ends, spring football is typically the next time a college head coach is going to talk to the media. So that's when I would expect it's going to be.
I mean, there's an outside chance. Well, no, there's not an outside chance. I was going to say signing day is the first week of February, but not for Notre Dame. Like, they've got everybody that they want, and then the transfers will all be announced because they'll all be at school. So, there's no point in having a press conference at that point. So it won't be till spring ball.
Yeah. Sean's final question: how would you reform transfer portal issues? Man,
oh God,
loaded.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, good grief. Well, you would a salary cap for a better, that's what I would do. I would try to limit the amount of money being thrown around, that kind of a deal. But they've already limited it to one transfer portal window, which I think is a good thing, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know. Other than that, I would try to put some guardrails up, but it's already free agency. Guys can come and go as they please. I mean, you can't at this point, you can't shove the toothpaste back in the tube and say, well, once you sign your letter of intent, you have to stay for 3 years. Like that, that's never going to happen. And
you can't, because it's an antitrust issue.
Right. So you can't do any of that kind of stuff. Yeah. So what other things could you do at this point? Not much. And by the way, the coaches are just as guilty as the players, because the coaching staffs are pushing guys out if they don't pan out the way they want them to in the time frame that they want them to. And so, coaches are pushing them out, players are jumping in. I mean, it's a whole thing right now. And I would like to see, personally, if you make an agreement with a kid when he comes into your school, where it's Notre Dame or elsewhere, if you make a commitment, basically sign a contract, this is what we're going to give you, amount of money wise, then that's what you got to give them until they leave your school. Like that, to me, that would be something I would look at. Some guarantees. And again, I know I bring up my kid a lot, but he was told, if you accept this scholarship to go to this school, no matter what happens on the field, you're going to get this scholarship the whole time you're here. It can only go up if you're a starter, if you're this, if you're that, but it will never go down. That's a guarantee that we as parents count on from a financial situation, which I appreciate. I would like to see something like that.
I just don't know what you can do at this point.
I know.
Like you said, the toothpaste is out of the tube, and I just, when you have both the portal and all this money involved, I don't know how you can change it. And, look, the coaches are the ones who wanted the transfer portal in this part of the calendar. They didn't want the spring portal. I still think that a spring portal would be better. And, you do it after your spring practices are over, and you open up more time either in late May or early June for actual, that's when you have your spring football practices instead of March and April. so that, like you have a transfer portal, then you get those guys at, toward the end of the academic year, and then you actually are able to, kind of stay on campus and do football practice, and then you break for a little bit, you come back in July and you start gearing up once again for for the start of training camp. I think it would be better than the coaches wanted it right here, because they wanted the ability to get these guys out of the portal
and into
and
school.
and have them in the spring. And I
Sure.
understand the desire to want that, so you can
Yeah.
evaluate your guys at that part. But again, if you switched it up and you gave them a just instead of spring practice, it's late spring / early summer practice, then you still get the benefit of that. You're still able to practice and then break down and then come back for training camp. It feels like that would be the better time, just because there's so many other things, like, just like look at what's going on, not only with Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, but, Oregon has got both coordinators who have taken head coaching jobs at other positions, and they're doing double duty right now.
Yeah.
So, and obviously there's a lot of other coaching moves and stuff like that, but that's why the coaches wanted to push it to this point. But like that, I think, is the most realistic thing that you could do, is just change when you have the portal open, if you're only going to have one window, which they wanted.
If you're going to do that, my only pushback or my only addition to that would be allow them to have some practices over the summer.
Well, that's what I said.
Okay. Like, yeah, I missed that part then. Okay.
So
yeah.
So basically, you wouldn't have your traditional March and April spring practice.
Okay.
You would have your transfer portal would happen like in April sometime. And then you go through the whole portal process, you get those guys signed, and then after that, in late May or early June, that's when you're replacing what used to be that,
Okay, so late May, early June, they're out of school.
Practice.
I
Right.
got you.
Then you take a break, you do your summer conditioning, and then you come back for training camp in late July or August. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's still some time in there where they could go home in between and do some different things. And because I still think that's important. Like, they should still be able to go home for a little while and not be on campus, year round.
Yeah.
Mr.
John says a player should only be allowed to transfer once. Again, that's never going to happen. You can't restrict them from doing that, because any other student on campus can transfer as many times as they want.
Yeah.
So you can't restrict, just because you happen to play a sport, you can't restrict a player from transferring. And I don't see them going back to, you have to sit out and any of that kind of, like, there's a lot of things that maybe could happen, but whether or not they, or should happen, but whether they could, that's another question.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break. This will be our only break, actually, this hour. I kind of broke this up, so we're going to have one break here right in the middle, and then we'll come back. More Notre Dame football mailbag questions coming up. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We continue Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm Sean Stiers with Vince D'Addario. We got Rapid Fire coming up. Hour number 2 of the show tonight. We're doing the mailbag right now, answering a lot of Notre Dame-related football questions, and this one was an interesting one from Jeff. What are your top 5 IB shows from 2025? I was startled to see a question like this. Like, do listeners sit at home and like track like, okay, this is my number 1, this is my number 2? If so, that's awesome. I would just say my favorite shows from 2025 are the ones where I was right on everything. So other than that.
Yeah, nice. Well, I'm much more altruistic. For me, it's the top 5 money earning shows. Those are the ones that I like the most. So mostly post game shows. And obviously there's the shows where we lose, where Notre Dame loses, are some fiery shows, man, and those tend to go very fast. And so I kind of dig those shows at times, but where they get a big win are much better, obviously. So
this is a good answer as well. That's
a great answer
to this show. Yeah,
that's one I look forward to every year. So there you go.
Where else is Vince going to get to complain about basketball uniforms if he doesn't have the Festivus show?
Nobody listens to me around here, so got a captive audience here.
I'm curious to see what your top grievance is next year. I'm already wondering about it.
Well, if you give me some early mock-up looks at Notre Dame's basketball uniforms next year, maybe we'll have an answer for you.
I'll see what I can do. Joe says, do you think the thinning of the herd of the current roster to make room for the entrance of the big incoming class is going to be enough, or is Notre Dame going to have more conversations with players before January 16th?
They've had all the conversations. Like, those conversations have already been had, and they know kind of who's where and what's going on. I mean, none of the guys jumping in the portal are surprises to Notre Dame. Like, this is not a situation where
they surprise fans in general, but Notre Dame knows they're coming.
The coaches aren't coming into the office one morning and, they flip on social media and they're like, oh my goodness, Bodie Cohoon just jumped in the portal. Like, that's not a thing. So, like, they know what's going on. And there may be some guys that they have conversations with and they tell them what their situation is. And then they tell the guy, the player, that they have a decision to make, whether they want to stick around or they want to jump in the portal.
And I don't think they're going to 105 on the roster this year anyway. Like, I think it's going to be,
they'll be a little over, I would imagine. Or you think it's going to be under? You think it's going to be under 105?
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's going to be 105. I think it's going to be a little under that, because they had to, they grandfathered in some of these guys. And that's why you've seen, again, because these are all like depth type guys who have left. And I know that it's disconcerting for some people, but they have a plan.
They do.
Publicly, things have just not gone quite the way I think that, they thought that they were going to go in some cases, definitely the way many other people anticipated they would go. I think they're kind of caught in between with some things going on. There are definitely some guys who they would like to have had who are not here, but at the same time, they've still got their eyes on some specific guys.
Absolutely.
So just have to see how it works out. Bernie, kind of piggybacking on that, says, is the entire Irish bench going to jump into the portal? How are we going to fill out this roster?
They'll be okay.
It'll be fine.
They'll somehow manage to get a bunch of starters and a bunch of guys who are going to rotate in and a bunch of guys playing special teams. They'll be okay.
I mean, like, look at the linebackers as an example. They lost a couple reserve linebackers in the last couple of days. Well, guess what? They've also got a couple of linebackers coming in this freshman class. I mean, it's the biggest freshman class I think that they have ever had, and most of them are going to early enroll. And so I think it's going to be
all but two. I think the entire class, all but 2 guys are going to early enroll. So, reinforcements are coming, obviously. And of course, Notre Dame has somebody in the chat wants to know if Notre Dame has a plan. Yes, they have a plan, and they're executing that plan. And you may not agree.
Sometimes you also have to adjust the plan as things happen.
Yes. And again, we don't have to agree with Notre Dame's plan, but they have a plan.
Right.
Like, they're not this willy-nilly just having guys come in for visits and, recruiting guys out of the portal and all that. They have a plan. They don't have to share it with us. Like, that's not a thing, but they have a plan.
What did you think about this news today of the assistant general manager?
I'll leave this one to you because I don't know anything about this.
Well, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. They're bringing him over from Penn State. I just think that it's interesting. It doesn't do anything to make fans feel more secure in what's going on when reports come out that you're hiring an assistant general manager 5 days into the transfer portal being open and you've signed, nobody so far. Like, I think they obviously need it. This was, again, this was something that was in the works. It wasn't just like they decided 2 days ago, man, we haven't signed anybody. We better get an assistant general manager in here. But he was a player personnel guy at Penn State, so he's been a while, helped build Penn State's roster. And, look, that was
Penn State had a really good roster. There's nothing you can there's no way anybody could look at Penn State's roster and not be like that. It was a really, really good roster, just mismanaged, and they lost. There's not well coached. Really good roster, though. That's why they were ranked where they were at the beginning of the season.
Right.
So look, it sounds like a good pickup. I will never balk at having more people in the player personnel office, because that was always a big argument back, 5-6 years ago. That office wasn't big enough, all of those kinds of things. I will never balk at bringing more people into that side of things. So great. Let's do it.
Yeah. And somebody pointed out, Marcus Freeman is still a big part of what they're doing. Old bag man said, he's still a big part of that. So,
and I highly doubt the new assistant GM is helping out with other sports.
Right. Why is old bag man got he's hiding his face on his photo?
It's like it looks like a Netflix documentary,
Chris wants to know if Jerry Jones will be the Cowboys owner and general manager from his plush nursing home room.
Did he come out and because there's been some Jerry Jones stuff in the chat? Has he come out and said something recently? Is there a thing going on?
He fired Matt Eberflus the other day. Other than that, yeah, nothing.
Okay.
Nothing new.
Just same old Jerry.
So, yeah. Bernie is fired up still.
Yeah, I see that.
Transfer portal.
Breaths. Bernie, I don't know if you're a member of the board, the premium message board at Irish Breakdown. You should, if you're not, you should be, because it hopefully will calm you down based on some of the intel that's over there.
There's a lot of good stuff there.
Yes. A lot of good
stuff.
There
are things that are happening. They just haven't got the actual commitments yet.
Right.
There's been plenty of
that you're aware of.
They're going on. Right.
Just because the public's not aware doesn't mean commitments haven't happened. I will say that.
Correct. Good way to put it.
Thank you.
Rizzo says, are these new front office additions about trying to take some of the load off of Marcus Freeman so he doesn't wear himself out and have more time to focus on the overall program instead of being involved in every little decision? I'd like to see Notre Dame set him up to not wear himself out and leave more tread on the tires so he doesn't want to leave.
Marcus Freeman is not involved in every little decision. I can guarantee you that. The GM has a lot of control when it comes to the roster. And so that's already in place. Having an assistant GM, I don't think is going to change anything from a day-to-day for Marcus Freeman. That will lighten the load for the GM is what it's going to do. It's not going to lighten the load for Marcus Freeman. That is a whole different side of things that he just kind of lets happen. I'm sure he has input in all of those things, and he approves strategies and plans, quote unquote, for all of you out there. He approves the plan, but all that stuff is executed by that staff.
I think he's more hands-on than Brian Kelly, but he's not so hands-on that he's knee-deep in everything, and he just is running in 18 different directions.
Correct. Yeah.
There's a lot of staff over there, not just in the player personnel side, but all those analysts and the assistants to the assistants that we don't know about, those kind of guys.
Right. And the hiring of the assistant GMs has zero to do with what's going on in the portal right now. Nothing. Like those hires were happening before the portal opened. So just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. Johnny says, if Jason Garrett gets an NFL job, who's the favorite for the Notre Dame game day booth? I saw that he was fishing for a head coaching position. He's apparently going to interview with the Tennessee Titans.
It'll be somebody on the NBC roster of announcers. They'll just move somebody into that spot that's already on the roster. You know what I mean? I don't think that they're going to go out and get anybody specifically to be the Notre Dame guy, because it's not always that group now that Notre Dame, now that NBC has the Big Ten and all these other things, like sometimes it's a different booth for Notre Dame games.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole thing is different now than it ever has been before. You're not going to have the same people every single home game. So,
and you at least do have them doing other games,
right?
Like Big Ten games and stuff like that. So they're doing multiple games per week. Chi-Town says Chris Sims. That would be an interesting one.
I could see that.
Since he does work for
I could see
NBC. I could see that. And like from what I haven't heard a ton of him. I've heard more of him, doing like his talk show or podcast or whatever it is. But, like he obviously played. He knows what he's talking about. He has a dad who is a broadcaster. And they actually, I think it was Peacock, hired Phil Sims. And he was doing some Big Ten games this past season.
Okay.
But, but still the thing with NBC, as opposed to especially ESPN, is you're going to have a shorter bench because you don't have as many games to broadcast. You don't have as many guys around. Johnny wants to know if we have any favorites.
Could not care less.
Off the top of my head, no.
Move the radio guys to TV. There you go. I like those guys. I like those two.
Yeah. The one everyone wants is the guy that
you're going to be interviewing on Friday.
Yeah.
Who works for a different company. Like, that's never going to happen.
Could you imagine this? Tuco says Brian Kelly is available.
Lord.
Could you imagine?
I would tune in. I would tune in to listen to that. I would, because I believe it would be a train wreck.
I'm trying to think. I'll have to brainstorm on this a little bit and see if there are any that come, because I just generally, like, most of the guys on ESPN are pretty good, but they're not like, oh man, gotta have it. Like, I think Blackledge is pretty good, honestly.
Yep.
But he's doing he has the primetime NBC game, so he's already working.
You'll get Notre Dame like twice a year,
all the time. Yeah, exactly.
At least I would imagine that. See, what they need to do, they need move, Ryan Harris and move the radio guys to TV, and then you and I take over for the radio.
There you go. Make it happen.
Done.
Chi-Town wants to know if we know if the Stanford or BYU game will be the final game of the Notre Dame season. There's been nothing on that so far.
Yeah, I believe it's going to be Stanford, because I don't know why they would change it. I don't know why they would do that to Stanford specifically.
Stanford, it was at Stanford this year.
Oh, this year? So Stanford was the home game.
They were just at Stanford.
Okay.
Year, remember?
Oh,
yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Remember, it brought
USC was in the middle.
Kickoff.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God. How could I forget? Then it might be BYU then, because Stanford's not going to come here at the end of November.
I don't see it happening.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So it could very well be BYU. I don't know. We're going to have a little bit of a different scheduling quirk next year.
I've heard that it could be BYU, but haven't heard anything definite that's going to happen, because they're going to Provo this year. So it would have to be a BYU home game, and Notre Dame has traditionally traveled that weekend.
Right.
Ghost of ND asked, do we think NBC might push Notre Dame in the Big Ten to work out a deal similar to the current ACC deal?
Well, Notre Dame's contracted with the ACC until 2036, so I don't see anything changing until then. So no, I don't see that. And plus, I don't think the Big Ten would be up for it, to be honest with you. I don't see them being a half in, half out situation, unless somehow Notre Dame negotiated that Notre Dame is part of the Big Ten for every other sport and still independent, with football, and they do a similar deal overall. Like, I just don't see the Big Ten going for that. They have a little bit more chutzpah than the ACC does.
Yeah. Everything I've heard says no.
Right.
Like that the Big Ten has been basically either you're in or you're out. There's not going to be any in between.
Yeah, I don't see that being the case. So no.
Tommy was asking earlier about Keon Keeley. What do you think about the whole Keon Keeley situation? Alabama defensive end, one-time Notre Dame commit.
Kid's got a ton of talent. Should have been at Notre Dame all along. This is a new world of college football. I'm not holding the grudge. The kid can play. I want him on the team. So he's already scheduled a visit to come in. I hope Notre Dame can seal the deal. I think that would be awesome.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been okay at Alabama. He definitely hasn't played to the level of expectation of a five-star guy. I guess we'll see. I mean, I obviously have no clue what his transcripts look like, but you're looking at an undergrad transfer. So there's still that aspect to it.
Sure.
Tommy also was asking, does Jesse actually believe Chris Ash made the adjustments after Purdue on his own? I don't think that that's what he thinks, but, at the same time, whether or not Chris Ash made the adjustments on his own, he still made the adjustments. I mean, there are plenty of times. Pick your season, pick your coach, where the head coach is going to have input, and he's just going to say, look, this is how I want it done. I mean, Brian Kelly, he had a lot of input on both sides of the ball when he was here. Every head coach has input on both sides of the ball. So I don't think that that's what Jesse was saying. You can ask him that tomorrow if you want, Vince. But I don't think that's what he was saying. But Ash still made the changes. I think that is ultimately Jesse's point.
Well, and here's the thing. If you're going to blame him solely for the problems, then you've got to give him credit when things got better. Like
right.
It can't be one way and one the other way. You know what I mean? If you're going to blame him all the way, then you got to give him credit all the way, because he wasn't making all those decisions in the first two games by himself either. So,
Exactly. Like there's just as much culpability on Marcus Freeman for not having more oversight of what was going on those first two games and what was going on, like in the middle and end of training camp when they were preparing. And it's like, this is the defense we're going to run. The head coach, he's got it. He's sitting there and he's looking at film of practice every day. He knows what defense they're running. So there's just as much on the head coach for allowing that to happen as there is on the coordinator for doing that to begin with.
And he's on the headset hearing the calls go in. Like it's not like when you're playing NCAA 26 and you sim the game, you know what I mean? And you have no idea what's going on. Like you do the recruiting and you do everything and then you sim the game. Like Marcus Freeman isn't simming the game. Like he's there. He's an active participant in the game, So
he's there every day. And again, they have film of every practice and then they go over that film of every practice. He knows what's going on.
Correct. 100%.
If he wanted more changes beforehand, he could have made those changes.
Agreed.
Joe wants to know if I scolded Jesse for not listening to my interview yesterday. I was playing the interview of Vanessa De Jesus from the Notre Dame women's basketball team. And apparently while that was going on, Jesse was out trolling people on social media and mixing it up. So
of course he was.
Yes. All right. That's the mailbag portion of the show. We've got a lot more Notre Dame football talk and other stuff coming up in hour number 2 of Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat. We call it Rapid Fire, and that is on the way right here, Sports Radio WSBT and IrishBreakdown.com. It is hour number 2 of the show. The 6 o'clock hour is here. And Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
Little Wednesday version, ready to rock and roll.
Here we go. With all this talk about Marcus Freeman in the NFL this offseason, which would you rather have? Freeman as the head coach for the next 5 years or CJ Carr at quarterback for the next 2 years?
This one, I had to really kind of think about, to be honest with you, because CJ Carr is a generational quarterback, in my opinion, at least at Notre Dame. And I think he's going to, not only has he already proved it, but I think he's going to continue to prove it and get better and better. And wouldn't you love to have that for the next 2 years? You know what I mean? Like, that would be awesome. And I'm not sure there's another CJ Carr on the roster. I'm just not sure. And so that was a very tempting one to take. But I'm going to go with the head coach because I'd rather have 5 years of stability and his recruiting and everything that Marcus Freeman brings to the table. I think I'd rather have that, and I hate to say it, over another year of CJ Carr.
I mean, if I said 4 years, would it change it at all? Because
No.
I'm in the same boat. Because, like, I look at it this way. Jeremiah Love and Leonard Moore both received unanimous All-American status a few weeks ago. It's just the second time since 1990 that Notre Dame has had 2 unanimous All-Americans in the same season. You know, the only other time in the last 35 years, 2 years ago, 2023, when Joe Alt and Xavier Watts did it. So you go 1990, Rocket Ismail, Chris Zorich, Michael Stonebreaker, 1990, 3 unanimous All-Americans. The next time Notre Dame even had 2 unanimous All-Americans was 2023 when Alt and Watts did it. And then this year with Jeremiah Love and Leonard Moore. What's all that got in common? Well, the only 2 times it's happened in the last 35 years, Marcus Freeman was the head coach.
Yep.
And, you know, the guys they're all guys that, with the exception of Alt, that he recruit. Well, and I guess Watts as well. But still, they turned into All-Americans under his watch. And that's the way this whole thing is going right now with the guy who's running the ship in Marcus Freeman. So, yeah, as much as you'd like to have a guy like CJ Carr and that kind of talent at quarterback for the next 2 years rather than see him potentially, you know, 1 more year and then he's off to the NFL draft, you want the guy who's put this whole thing together and put them into the position, you know, to be competing for national championships year in and year out. So Freeman at the helm for 5 years, you'd much rather have than even a generational type quarterback for an extra year.
I would love to have Carr, though, for 2 more years, though, man. I got to tell you.
Wouldn't you?
And I'm not saying that's off the table, but if he has the kind of season that I think he's going to have, I think it's going to be hard-pressed to come back.
Right, because look, like people are already talking about Carr the way they were talking about Arch Manning going into this past season. Well, the difference is Carr has already played at a higher level than Arch Manning has played at. So
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not even all that close, to be perfectly honest. So, yeah.
Fill in the blank. It's blank that one of the transfer portal players Notre Dame is interested in is Mercer quarterback Braden Atkinson.
I think it's on brand. Like you know what? I'm going to change it because of the chat today. I'm going to say it's part of the plan. Because people don't think that Marcus Freeman has a plan. This is definitely part of the plan because they're not bringing somebody in to compete with CJ Carr. They're bringing somebody in to provide depth in the quarterback room, potentially compete for number 2, right? Because you're going to have a bunch of new guys and guys with not a lot of experience, you know, behind him. So they're going to bring in a guy who has experience, can be a solid backup, all of those kinds of things. This is absolutely part of the plan.
It is part of the plan. I agree with kind of what John is saying here in the chat. I think it's a somewhat surprising plan just because of the specific profile that Atkinson has. I mean, this is a guy, yes, Notre Dame wants experience. And so to be able to go out in the transfer portal and bring in a guy who, at least for this year, as long as CJ Carr is going to be around. He knows that the best he is going to be is number 2, but they want that experience as an insurance policy, obviously, in case something were to happen to your number 1 guy, so he could potentially come in and run the ship, because they're gearing up for a run at a national championship. That's what 2026 is all about. But the particular profile of Atkinson is he is a freshman who's only played 1 year. And yeah, he comes from a smaller division, but like there's still a lot out there for him potentially. So would they be looking at him just as, not even a bridge guy, but just as a reserve guy? And does he potentially turn around and hit the transfer portal a year or 2 down the road because of the fact that maybe some of these other guys like a Teddy Gerard or a Noah Grubbs or whoever it happens to be, or Hebert, like comes in and they're going to be the starter the next year? Is Atkinson potentially looking at this as just a development opportunity and a chance to maybe raise his profile a little bit?
100%. I was going to say, I guarantee that's part
You're
of
shaking your head. It's radio. You can't forget.
It's part of the conversation. I think that's part of the conversation.
Right.
They're like, look, come here, provide some stability, provide some experience. We're going to coach you up at a high Division I, situation. Look at Steve Angeli, look at Kenny Minchie, look at these guys that have come in to Notre Dame as backups, never had starting experience. And Kenny Minchie reportedly just signed a $2 million deal to go to Kentucky. Okay. That's a selling point. That's a selling point, bringing in a backup quarterback.
Yeah. Being the backup at Notre Dame can get you a lot.
100%. I think that makes a lot of sense to me.
I guess I was just surprised that they were talking to him, but just because of his specific profile, freshman guy, one-time starter, and he has so much eligibility remaining that he would, might be interested. Because I thought that, okay, maybe you go out and again, like you find a guy who's played at that same level, but he's a little bit older. He's, he's a junior, again, like looking to just raise his profile and have a chance to come in here and develop and still potentially have another year. But, look, Trinidad Chambliss, and I realize he is still the outlier as opposed to the rule, but this is a guy who was playing Division II football, and Ole Miss brought him in kind of under the same circumstances, just to be a guy.
He was going to be a backup.
Some experience. Yeah, he was supposed to be the backup, and then Ole Miss's starter got hurt, and Chambliss took over, and look at where they are now. And I think that, just to a large degree, that's the kind of guy that potentially that Notre Dame is looking to get out of this whole deal. A guy with starting experience who can still come in and run the ship if you need him to.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think they're, what Notre Dame is doing by having the one kid reclassify and all these different things, they're setting up a 3-man race for whenever CJ Carr goes to the NFL. And they're happy with that 3-man race. They're happy with the guys that are going to be in that competition. And they need insurance for this year. They need insurance for the 26th season. And I think they got it, or they're going to get it.
That was crazy, by the way, how that whole Kenny Minchie thing played out. He committed to Nebraska, and then the next thing you know, boom,
5 minutes later. Yeah. That was interesting. I believe there was some miscommunication between Kenny and Nebraska, and I think he probably pulled the trigger a little too fast.
Sounds like it.
But kind of a wild situation there.
But hey, I talked to earlier about the fact that Oregon's got both of its coordinators out there running other programs and navigating the portal as head coaches now, and that's the Kentucky coach. So
I think this is a much better landing spot for him from a scheme standpoint, from a coach on the hot seat or not standpoint. I think Kentucky's a better landing spot. I really do. I think this is a good spot for him.
I guess we'll find out here pretty soon.
This is true. I'm not saying Kentucky is going to go win a national title, but this day and age, you never know. I just think the offense fits Kenny better than the offense at Nebraska.
Bernie, ever the optimist, says it looks like Miami is about to run the table. The biggest mistake the Irish made was putting training wheels on Carr.
I starred this comment because it's the first thing that Bernie has said that I actually agree with. Not the first part, but the second part. I do think they played it way too close to the vest with CJ Carr in the first game. He didn't need the training wheels. He didn't need to be on a leash like that. They needed to let him play. They lost by what, 3 points? Like, let him play the game. I think they have a chance of winning that game.
I do think that based on the things that they saw, like the fact that things came down to the wire and some of the turnovers and stuff like that, I think that played into their
They were
minds
scared. Yeah.
going on the road. Yeah, they definitely played a little scared, but apparently Marcus Freeman decided at halftime, look, we gotta let this guy go out there and cook. Like look at the play that he made in the first half with that first touchdown pass
Right.
that he had. It's like that definitely played some impact, but there were some other factors as well. The defense was still a factor in it. I do think if they weren't playing it, like if they weren't throwing a million screen passes and all those RPOs, then Bain doesn't make that interception. And that's, there was only 3 points, but still, then the game came down to 3 points at the end, all those things. The fact that they didn't make Jeremiah Love a bigger part of the game plan,
Sure. Oh yeah, that's a big part of it.
That was a huge part of it as well.
100%. That was a huge part of it. They needed to let CJ Carr and Jeremiah Love be more of the game plan, and if they did that, look, they were going to score more than 21 points. I mean, bottom line, somebody said, well, was it the offense or was it the defense's fault? Well, the defense gave up 24 points. Like, yeah, the defense, they had their moments of not looking good, right? But I would think that the offense should be able to score more than 24. I feel like they had the handcuffs on a little bit. So it was a twofold situation. But if you let CJ Carr and Jeremiah Love play the way that you allowed them to play as the season went on, I don't think that game's that close. But again, revisionist history. Miami's still playing. Notre Dame's not. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. Not much you can do about that right now.
Yeah.
Chris says Notre Dame women's basketball is going to be hard pressed to make the tournament this season. Again,
a little early for that.
Yeah, they've only played 4 ACC games. Are they a lock to make the tournament? Of course not. But they've got 14 conference games to go. Look at their schedule. Very realistic that they can still win 8 to 9 at a minimum of these last 14 conference games that they have. And if they do that, they'll be above 500 in ACC play. And if you look historically at what the ACC has put into the tournament, which has been 8 teams, the ACC has received 8 bids in the ACC tournament, in consecutive years. I think it's like 6 or 7 years in a row. I think if Notre Dame wins 8 or 9 games, which gets them to 10 or 11 overall in ACC play, they're in the NCAA tournament, because that's not even factoring in what they do in the ACC tournament. So I think they'll be fine. Are they going to beat the elite teams? As of right now, they're going to be pretty hard pressed to do that. But are they an NCAA tournament team? You've got to look at it it's a high standard that has been set. And obviously this team, as it's comprised, is not at that same level. But are they an NCAA tournament team? That's a completely different conversation. And I still think that they've got a really good chance to do that if they win 8 or 9 more games out of these last 14 in ACC play the rest of the way.
I'm with you. It's way too early to be like, they're not going to make the tournament. Like, it's January 7th. Like, I'm not making declarations like that. They had a bad weekend. Sean. Like, that happens. And they have plenty of opportunity, plenty of runway left to make up for that.
I agree. All right. Let's take a timeout. When we come back, more rapid fire. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We continue with Rapid Fire, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm Sean Stiers, along with Vince D'Addario. One final thought here, Vince, on the whole, we were talking about the Miami and the game plan and the whole thing. One final thought on the whole, how things shook out down there. You can't just give the head coach credit for everything and blame the coordinators for everything that goes wrong.
Exactly true.
Like whether it's Chris Ash and how he's designing the defense, like we talked about, and Mike Denbrock and whatever game plan he puts together, especially those first couple games of the season when you've got the whole entire offseason to prepare for Miami. The head coach is always going to have input on both sides of the ball, but I think even more so for that game. And then you look at the fact that they had a bye week in between that game and the Texas A&M game to look at, okay, what worked right, what didn't, what do we need to change? You can't just blame the coordinators for the bad stuff and give the head coach credit for all the good stuff that happens.
100%. Like somebody in the chat said, it was something about Denbrock choking or whatever. Like,
yeah.
He did have his marching orders. Like there was a game plan that was approved by the head coach, Now, Marcus Freeman isn't sitting there, dictating exactly what play to call in every moment. Like that's not how that works.
Right.
But he does approve the way that they were going to get after that game, Were they going to be run heavy? Were they going to use a bunch of screens? Were they not going to put the ball in harm's way? Those kinds of things, even though they threw a pick on a screen pass, that was understood by Mike Denbrock. You can have issues with some of the plays that he called in the moments that he called them, and I have no problem with that. But you can't put all the blame on Mike Denbrock. That's all we're saying.
Exactly. And I'm not saying all the blame goes to Marcus Freeman either, but he is the head coach. And again, like the two biggest games on your schedule, right, front-loaded on the schedule, he's going to have even more eyes on everything because once the season starts, then he's got more things that he's kind of, got to be looking at. But like, going in, like specific game plan stuff, he had input on that as well. So you can't absolve Marcus Freeman for that. And again, I'm not saying he deserves all the blame either, but you can't just praise the head coach and blame the coordinators because some stuff happened. The head coach is part of it as well. Fill in the blank. Tommy Rees interviewing for the Cleveland Browns head coaching vacancy is blank.
It's curious, but understandable is what I would say, because, he's obviously been in the organization for a couple of seasons now. They've gotten to know who he is as a person, and as a coach, and he's young. And so, how many opportunities, if anybody that's in a business understands that sometimes you need practice doing interviews, and sometimes it can be very good for your maturation process of doing interviews and things like that to get an interview. You're not necessarily going to get the job, but going through the interview process can be very, very beneficial. So I think that's the kind of situation we're looking at right now. I don't think he's a top 3 candidate for the job, but I do think that the Browns are giving him an opportunity to interview for the head coaching job to give him some experience doing that.
That's right. I'm sure that him being in the building and, talking to the general manager and ownership, like everything else, they realize what a sharp, bright mind he's got, and he is very young. I think he's only 33 still, which is like, and I was thinking about it today. Tommy Rees is 33. Charlie Weiss Jr. is 32.
Yep.
Like, think about that.
They're like the same age.
I know.
Yeah.
And where these guys are in their career right now. So, yeah, I think at the very least, you're giving Tommy Rees the experience to get his first head coaching interview with an NFL team. And then on the other side of it, like the Cleveland, like Stefanski stayed around a little bit longer than the average Cleveland Browns
This is true.
coach. So, like, at the very least, you're probably not going to hire Tommy Rees as your head coach this year. And I still think that as young and as sharp and as bright as he is, he's probably not going to get a head coaching job this cycle. I will eat my words if he does.
Sure.
I still think he's 2 or 3 years down the road. But you're also getting a better idea as Cleveland of, like what's inside Tommy Rees's head. And so maybe the next time that that you do have a vacancy if he's not a head coach yet and he's still a coordinator someplace else. Maybe he's somebody you come back to a couple years down the road. So I think it benefits both sides in that aspect.
And you never know, like front office guys move around to other teams and, like the quote unquote family of the NFL. I mean, guys are just bopping around from different team to different team to different team. And you never know who you're going to impress in one of these kind of quote unquote practice interviews, that kind of thing. It could help them out in the future with another job someplace else. You know what I mean? So this is nothing but good for Tommy Rees. Nothing but good for his career advancement.
Bernie, very high on Tommy Rees, and he was in on Rees yesterday. He says they should hire Rees or regret it for the next 4 decades. Wow. Man, I don't know. Like what you got right there right now. I don't know that Tommy Rees is going to solve all the Cleveland Browns problems in 1 year. I'm more baffled by the fact that Garrett goes out and he gets the sack record, and then he's complaining about the way the Cleveland Browns do things. It's like, did you not realize that before you signed that big free agent contract last offseason? Like, I mean, did you think that just because you signed that deal, you were going to come in and your team was going to magically just be better in every way?
They have made some, like you mentioned it before, but some very curious contract with players. Very curious. So I don't know, Sean. It's going to take a little while to dig out from under some of those. So if you're a Browns fan, don't be expecting miracles anytime soon.
Exactly. Man. If you're a Browns fan, I feel for you. Let's put it that way. Fill in the blank. Australian punter Jasper Scaife. I don't know exactly how to say his last name. He's going to punt at Notre Dame, and Vince is blank.
I'm so confused at the strategy of Coach Biaggi and the way he recruits. It's baffling to me. Not only the way he recruits, but also his development or lack thereof, or his talent evaluation is just it's befuddling to me. He brought in the number 1 punter in the country last year, and he's trying to turn him into a kicker instead of allowing him to be a punter. And then he goes and gets another punter, but not another kicker. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. And then they're going to go back to the portal for another kicker. And it's just, I don't understand what he's doing. I mean, you have a really, really good punter on your roster already, and then you go and over-recruit him with an Australian kid who, I'm sorry, that's just an easy recruitment for Biaggi because it's the same guy that trained the last guy.
But why is that a bad thing, though? The last guy turned out to be pretty good. Like if
he was terrible his first year.
Yeah, but that's because I think that to your point about Biaggi, I think that he was overthinking things a bit. And I know that we talked about this on a lot of different shows, with the rugby style punts and all that different kind of stuff. Just let him do his thing.
Agreed.
He's fine. And I think that that's what they figured out. And that's why he was so much better. And now you've got another guy who does come out of that same program. And a lot of programs have had success with these Australians, and like he's a fully developed, like he's 6'5", 200 pounds. Like,
I don't care what he's built like. That means nothing to me as a kicker or a punter. That means zero. It means absolutely zero.
So there's no extra strength because he's 200 pounds. That means he's got no extra strength than his legs. Like you've seen.
I've been to a hell of a lot of kicking camps in my life, watching guys kick. You can never tell me walking off of a bus how good a kicker is or a punter based on how they look, because the smallest guy on the planet will just boom the crap out of the ball, and then the biggest, strongest, athletic-looking kid will suck. I'm being honest with you. You can't, when it comes to punting and kicking, what your physical physique looks like makes no difference to me whatsoever.
Okay,
it just doesn't. Blake Groupie is a prime example.
No, true.
He is a tiny, tiny individual, and he has a thunder stick on it attached to his body.
But by your rationale, because they brought in a highly rated high school punter last year, they should just ride with that guy and not bring anyone else in.
You can bring other people in, but it's in addition to the fact that they're trying to turn this highly rated punter into a kicker. Like, that's my biggest issue. Like, you should not be in pregame warmups taking videos of your kickers kicking to show them later on and try to coach them up. Like, that is
I agree with that.
Low level coaching, in my opinion.
Well, I don't know about low level. I mean, Biaggi did say that he, he's done it for a while.
He mismanaged that whole kicking situation.
I do think that, because I used to talk to Jesse about this when it came like to hitting and, think of like the swing and stuff like that. But like working on that stuff is for practice. Once you get to game day, you can't be like, that's not the thing that you should be thinking about or looking at. Like, if you want to video it and break things down, you're doing it during the week.
Thank you for being more specific about what I was
referring to. I agree. I
appreciate that.
I agree with the context of what you're saying.
The fact that they ran 3 different kickers out in the same game is ridiculous. That's you are just absolutely messing with the minds of these kids, putting so much pressure on one kick. Like, if you miss it, you're done. We're never even going to give you another shot. Like, it's awful. Not a fan.
People just want me to I basically did effectively wind you up. And
you did. And this one's been sitting in the hopper here for a few days too.
It has. And like this, they got this commitment a while back, and I hadn't had a chance to talk to Fitz about it yet. So.
It's mind-boggling to me. Look, and we talked about at the beginning of the show, always make your room better. Like, I don't have a problem with going out and getting another person to push, that kind of a thing. But I feel like they went out and got this kid and anointed him the starting punter when he's never punted in an actual game before.
True.
And you've got a kid who has done it,
who had really never done it.
And he struggled. He struggled. Yeah. So and he admitted it later on. He's like, my first game was at Texas A&M, and I get scared the crap out of me. Like, he basically said that. Like, now you're going to go do that again. I don't like this repeat of history.
Well, but at the same time, I like the fact that they know they're going to get potentially 4 years out of this guy.
Okay.
They didn't even know if they were going to get more than 1 year out of Rendell. And I still don't completely understand exactly, why, I guess just because of his age or, whatever else, still don't completely understand that aspect of it, especially when you look at the fact that Diego Pavia might be playing for 9 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Said and done.
100%. It's just the manner in which they're going about things just blows my mind. And we'll see what they end up doing again in the portal, getting a kicker. I haven't been impressed with his evaluations and the way he's handled guys that are already on the roster.
Okay.
Not a fan.
I mean,
and I probably just ruined any chance of my kid going there. And joking 100%. But yeah.
To be honest, I'm surprised, talking about transfer portal and kickers, because it felt like kicker was the easiest sign they were going to make out of this transfer portal, and we still haven't heard anything about that.
There's some whispers and some things. Like, there's some pretty good kickers out there that still have not committed, so they got a chance at not screwing this up. But we'll see what happens.
And I thought that this guy from Northwestern was going to be their guy, but
we've heard the guy from Northwestern, the guy from Illinois who ended up going to A&M, and then there's the guy from Arkansas, and then there's just hearing all kinds of different things at different times of day. Doesn't lead you to be all that excited. So once they sign a kid, we will have another conversation. Sean.
Exactly.
Yes.
ESPN's Mike Greenberg posted this recently. Help me complete this sentence. What has happened at Indiana football the last 2 seasons is the most magical college football story since blank.
I don't know that I would use the word magical. It's not magical. Like, it's
Indiana.
No, listen, hold on. No, it's impressive. It's playing by the rules. It's doing all the things that you're allowed to do in the NIL era and all of those things. That doesn't make it magic. That makes it
the losingest program in college football history has a chance to win a national championship. That's not magical.
Not in the way they did it. No, that's not magic.
Oh, you're just mad.
That's not magic. That's not sleight of hand. It's very clear how they did it.
All right.
It's not magical. I'm sorry. That's a terrible word to use for what Indiana is doing. It's impressive. It is all of those kinds of, it's not magical. I'm sorry. When an underdog, an actual underdog, like that has players that aren't as good, that you didn't go out and buy in the portal, and they go on a run, that's magical. This is not magical. I'm sorry.
So you're not going to complete the sentence?
No, well,
down his use of the word magic.
Okay. Well,
personally, I don't think there's anything in college football that compares. Like,
agreed, because college football is completely different than it's ever been before.
Yeah,
and so comparing anything that happens these days to the past is almost not fair to the past. You know what I mean? Like. So I don't really have a blank because I think this is the first time it's ever happened.
Yeah, because even Bill Snyder at Kansas State, as an example, took a program that was one of the losingest in college football.
Magical. That's magical.
But even they were like, just to get to a Big 12 championship game or to get to a BCS bowl, like
magical.
That was, but at the same time, he wasn't able to go to this same level, but he also wasn't working under the same guidelines and parameters that Curt Cignetti is working under right now, where he can bring basically half a roster with him from James Madison or grab other guys out of the transfer portal and be able to revamp a roster this quickly. I mean, it's not only have we not seen a turnaround story like this, but again, other coaches historically have never been given the powers that Curt Cignetti has been given to be able to do what he's done at Indiana, because just 5 years ago, you still had to sit out for a year if you came in from the transfer portal. What, 5, 6? It wasn't even the transfer portal, obviously, then. Like, remember Alohi Gilman when he came over from Navy? He had to sit out for a year when he transferred from Navy. And then turned himself into an NFL safety. Like, no one else has been able to work under these same settings that Cignetti has had. So it is just drastically different than anything else ever. Vince is the one that's shooting it down, Chris. So he says, why is this working for Indiana and not
they
Colorado?
Actually picked the right guys and they have a better coach.
They picked the right coach.
Yeah. And they did a better job of talent evaluation.
Yeah.
And they have a better coach
on the right things.
Yeah.
That's right.
Exactly. Right. I mean, that's why
Colorado still doesn't have an offensive or defensive line. I mean, that's a big part of why Cignetti has done what he's done, because he's built it from the lines out.
And look, and here's the other situation. Like, here's the other thing. What is also unique about what IU is doing, and I give them all the credit in the world, because they have actually done it for more than 1 year. There have been teams that have tried to buy their team and try to continue to do that year in and year out, and they haven't had the success. They just haven't. IU has. Like, they are a unicorn in the fact that they've been able to do that for 2 years.
Because
they continue it.
Yeah, because the next question is, can Texas Tech continue what they just started?
Right.
Exactly. That's a big question. Like, they're a player now. Like, could Kentucky potentially be, or Vanderbilt? Like, look at what Clark Lee has done at Vanderbilt. Not quite at the same level, but just behind. And especially, again, when you look historically at what Vanderbilt is, not that far ahead of where Indiana football is. And look what Clark Lee has done there. Are they going to stay in the picture there in the SEC? Could Kentucky become the next one as they get a new head coach and they're going to invest more in it? Like, can
you sustain it? Can you do it that way? That's the biggest thing, because right now, IU's done it for 2 straight years. Can they continue to do it? I think that's a question mark. I'm not saying it's an impossibility, but it's a question mark, because Lincoln Riley tried to do it at USC. He hasn't been successful, right? You can name other programs that have been attempting to do what Curt Cignetti has been successful doing. And so I guess if you want to put it that way, it's magical because they're the only ones that have ever done it, right? But I just think with the way the rules are and the way things are, I just don't see it as magic anymore, like it used to be, like a Cinderella.
If he did this 10 years ago,
that would have been magical.
That would have been magic.
100%.
He's not bringing 20 guys from James Madison with him.
And he's not
he's
doing it with
not
a
able
bunch
to
of
get
2
a
and 3
quarterback
stars.
2 years in a row
Right.
to come in and be able to play right away because all those
Exactly.
guys have to sit. Yeah,
Yes.
it's completely different. I understand that.
Yeah.
And, again, like to Chris's point, Cignetti is a better head coach. He had to go out and prove himself at a place like James Madison or Indiana, Pennsylvania, and, like places like that before he got this opportunity. And I think that that is part of why he's got such a large, oversized chip on his shoulder. To an extent, understandable, I guess. But he is a more proven, better head coach than Deion Sanders, and he's built it the right way. But like, again, to Chris's point, other coaches could be doing the exact same thing, but they haven't been able to, come close to doing that yet. But I think that Cignetti is also ratcheted up like unrealistically for a lot of other athletic directors that you should be able to go out and make a dent right away.
Agreed. They've set the bar very high, very high.
Yeah.
And again, I give them all the credit in the world for doing what they're doing under the rules that are now in place. Like, hey, and Curt Cignetti's a good coach. Like, I may not like him as a human being. He's a really good coach, and he has a really good staff, right? And they are incredibly disciplined at IU. Give them all the credit in the world for that. Can it be sustained? Exactly.
I know, Craig. I know he's a good coach. I've Googled him.
Yeah, exactly. And I may resent how cocky he is, but he can back it up. He has backed it up.
Backed it up. Yeah.
I'm also very happy that one of the 2 losses that he's had in the last 2 years came to Notre Dame. Like, I'm okay with that too.
Yep. But just imagine the gloat here in,
I know,
what is it, 12 days when they play the national championship game. If
IU wins it,
the whole thing, we're gonna hear it. We're gonna hear it. All right, we're gonna take our last time out and then back to wrap up rapid fire Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Winding things down, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat and Rapid Fire. Got time for a couple more questions here. Does Lane Kiffin lose some luster if Ole Miss wins a national championship without him, Vince?
A little bit, because I think a lot of people associated their success with Lane Kiffin. I mean, he was the one calling the plays and doing all the things. So I think not a ton, but he definitely loses a little bit of luster, a little bit.
I have to think so. I mean, you're the head coach, and I don't think like when you look at kind of how he's handled this whole assistant coaching thing, it's like, oh, sure, you can keep him for another game or whatever. I don't think that he thought that they were going to beat Georgia last week, and he didn't think it was going to be an issue, and they were going to be right back there with him. Like, and that's why he's at LSU to begin with. He didn't think that he had the team or the ability, very similar to the guy that left Notre Dame a few years, 4 years ago. Didn't think that he could win a national championship where he was. So he took what he thought was a better opportunity and went to LSU, where he had more resources and could recruit better and do all this different stuff. So I think that, he'll get a ring, if it happens, because like that's how it typically works. Like professional sports, you see it all the time. You get traded in the middle of the season or whatever, and you go off and play somewhere else. You still get a ring if your team goes on to win a championship. Like Nomar Garciaparra got a ring from the Boston Red Sox when they won their first championship back in 2004 when he was still
a Cub
in Chicago. So but I think Lane definitely loses a little bit of luster if they win this whole thing without him.
They're kind of the underdog. Are they the Cinderella of the Final Four right now?
Of what's left, even though they're an SEC team, they're still like one of the, like, really for a long time, Ole Miss was one of the lower tier SEC teams. And, Kiffin obviously turned them into a contender. Tuco says, who would you rather see win it, Miami or Indiana?
This is tough. This is really, really tough.
Do you understand how unbearable? Like, if you were a Notre Dame fan and one of these two teams wins the national championship, I would stay off social media for, at a minimum, a week.
Yes.
Because you're just going to be trolled and baited the whole time.
So the answer for me is I'd rather see Miami win. Now, from a social media standpoint, that might be worse, right? But an in-person living my life, living in in Indiana, IU winning would be so much worse.
Yep.
So much worse. The whole act like you've been there before thing, like they never have. They don't know how to act.
Yeah.
So
that went out the window last year. So,
I
can't even imagine this year.
I would rather have Miami win. Yes, I'm sorry. To all the IU fans listening, I apologize. I just cannot get on board. I'm sorry.
No, because the combination of an arrogant coach, and a fan base who, like you said, I'm sorry, like,
who have adopted his personality.
Yeah. From the jump. Like it's just one of those situations that, like, you think you invented the game now at this point, and you've been good for 2 years.
This is a
Not
great
even
comment.
2 full years.
This is a great comment. I had to bring it up from Bitten by the Party Animal. Says, had an IU fan tell me that they would win the NFC. They don't even know what they're talking about. Oh. You want that to win a championship? Like, and that's the thing. Like, I can't even be happy for you because you're like, that would be tough.
Yeah.
It'd be tough.
Yep. Do you think Kiffin, going back to Lane Kiffin, do you think he'll try to claim the championship if Ole Miss does win it?
100%. Absolutely. I don't know. Like, his social media is a very interesting situation all by itself.
It is.
But absolutely. Yes, I do think that.
Like he still thinks that he should have been allowed to coach there. And he still thinks that, I think that, a big part of him thinks that it is still his team. And he probably can't understand why a lot of those guys, were maybe kind of glad to see him go. I mean, I'm not saying that they didn't like it when he was there because they were obviously winning.
Yeah,
he was there, but it definitely, like, this whole situation seems to be a big rally point for Ole Miss. But I absolutely think that, like, Lane Kiffin will probably change his Twitter bio to say national championship head coach.
100%. And why would I would, if I was in his position, I would. Like, he's never won a national title before as a head coach. I would change my Twitter bio too. Take it.
I think so. All right. Well, I think that is pretty much going to do it for tonight as we wind things down on this Wednesday. I'll be out tomorrow. I've got a Notre Dame women's basketball game. They host Boston College at 6:00 at Purcell. So Vince and Jesse are going to have a short show from 5 until 5:40, a sprint
Yes.
show tomorrow.
It'll probably be a rapid fire show, I think is probably what we'll do on
All
these
right.
Thursdays where we have to cut short, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And then we'll be back for Friday's show. We're going to do a little we in, we out on Friday's show.
Okay.
So,
let's roll.
looking forward to that. Three-man booth
That's right.
as well.
We out on special teams. We out.
All right. Don't forget, 2 pros and a cup of Joe. Brady Quinn, Jonas Knox, LeVar Arrington. Weekday morning, 6 a.m. here on Sports Radio WSBT. Vince, I will talk to you again soon.
Sounds good.
Talk to you later. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.